Okay, a very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. I wasn't quite sure if I would have a voice until I started talking, and now it's working, so we'll start from there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome back to day 2 of Automotive Logistics, the Supply Chain Conference 2017. Those of you who maybe are just joining us, welcome to the conference. I want to thank everyone who participated yesterday, our great speakers, our networking, a fantastic gala dinner hosted by Ryder at the Atlanta History Center, and perhaps more for the people who aren't in the room, thanks to those who joined us at the Afterglow. Sergey very kindly provided these glasses. Bill said to me, no one should have to see those bleary eyes on stage, especially our global audience. So I'm hoping the cameras do me some justice for that. So, but no, it was seriously, it was a great event, and we continue this morning the discussions, the very serious business discussions that we continued throughout the night last night. I actually just wanted to take a quick moment to, because for those of you who maybe didn't come to the Afterglow, or perhaps who were there but didn't get a chance, one thing Sergey had a speech about was that they are supporting, through their charity work, a program called Iridescent. And if anyone didn't meet Monica, Monica is here. And I mean, one thing I can say about this audience, and I say it with really all of the respect, but one thing we're not is a very diverse crowd. I see a lot of 50-something male. This industry is not as diverse as it could be, and I think that will go across lots of areas of manufacturing. And we talked all day yesterday about technology, the coding aspect, and what Iridescent does is they're trying to encourage girls and families to get involved in technology, in coding, things in Silicon Valley, and offering opportunities through mentors and things. So, if you look across and you say, okay, we have a problem perhaps in the future, we need these things, we need these skills, this is a program that is actively doing that. So I would encourage you for your company, perhaps talk to Monica or talk to Sergey, and they'll help you get involved, show support, maybe see what how they might be able to help or support. So I think it's a good initiative, and it's something that we need. We can't just sit on stage and talk about, we need all these skills and we have these gaps without really do something about it. So I thought that was a great initiative, and I just wanted to take a moment to point that out. So that sort of continues into the conference today and our session this morning. Automotive Supply Chain 2025, Understanding Evolving Supply Chain Priorities. I mean, really, that's a theme that's going across the conference, right? We're trying to be forward-looking. We're trying to understand what we need in the supply chain over the next 10 years. This morning, we're going to have a bit of a focus in particular some of our speakers on talent development, on students and education, but also understanding a bit more from a tier supplier perspective what the changing needs and priorities are over the next decade and beyond. So we have a great panel put together for you. We're going to have a presentation to start from Michael Silvio, who's the Senior Director of Supply Chain Management at Cooper Standard, and also quite involved with universities, and he's been teaching for some time at a university in Detroit. We're also pleased to have Kerry Zielinski from Syncrian, and joining us as a panelist without a presentation, but also available for Q&A, is John Godfrey from Pirelli Tire. So two-tier supplier, so to say, and a logistics provider. Kerry's had experience across the 3PL sector for some time, and so it should be a great discussion this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the stage over to Mike from Cooper Standard.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. Good morning. A reminder, most of you are not as young as you used to be. You probably feel that way this morning. So I want to start with a question, because you've got the red and green cards. Where's the clicker? Right here. Okay, so. Question, millennials know more about technology than we do. Green says yes, red says no. Okay, a lot of people feel that. Well, I have a little different position. They know a lot about social media and gaming, but they really don't know a lot about data management and business processes. They just don't have the experience yet. You can't be effective and apply these new ideas that they have with technology and things that you can do until you understand the business processes. Yet, we haven't really led them properly to understand the business. We tend to want to, hit the ground running, get done what you can do, and we need to do a better job of that. So, some things that millennials do that kind of drive us crazy in the work world, and I coach kids on this when I teach at the university, is using lingo that we're not familiar with, excessive punctuation emojis and long emails, changing your mind, and then playing with your smartphone. But if you think about it, there were always things that entry-level people have done to drive older executives crazy. When I entered the market, there were things that I did that were annoying to my bosses, and every generation's that way. There's new people coming in, and they just don't have the experience, and there's habits, and a lot of the habits are formed around the technology that we've put in front of them. They don't thank us much for it, but the computers they play with, and it's all due to our generation. So what do millennials that enter the workforce, what do they really have going for them? What do we really need to appreciate about them? Well, they do have the love of their mom and dads, and that's very important. They have that more so than I had, I think, because my folks were like, get out of the house, go get a job. But they have the youthful energy that we once had, right? I love when someone new comes in the organization and they're ready to work and they're ready to learn. And then I'm disappointed when I see their leaders not foster that excitement, not foster that energy to really improve that person's career prospects, improve projects. They have a fresh set of eyes to look at problems, right? Remember, if those of you that have kids when they're like 3 or 4 and they say, why? And that's what people looking at things for the first time do. Why do we do that? Why have we done this for so many years? So that fresh set of eyes is really nice to have. They do have the ears to the street. They know the market, they know what's changing. They change the demands on how we use cars, how we energize cars, and so they know the changing market. And that's really interesting to have on your team because they see what's changing out there. Where should I be pointing at? Oh, there we go. I'm pointing at the screen like it's going to do something. They've got great new ideas. They ask why, like I said, it's fantastic. But most importantly, millennials have changed the way we do business and look at business in one significant way. They have great beards, and they have full sleeve tattoos, right? I could never have a beard. So we are now permitted to go to work looking like pirates. Absolutely. So are millennials attracted to automotive and logistics, right? It's a pretty old industry. It's old school. 90% of us probably work in a gray cubicle. And if you've been fortunate enough to move up the ladder, you're now in a gray office, right? Did you want that when you were coming out of college? Did you say, I want to work in this cubicle farm and 8 to 5 and wait for the clock to tick? I wasn't that way, and I don't think many of you were either. Kids, they want to travel. They want experience. They want to enjoy themselves and have excitement. And I think that's healthy for a young person. Yet we put them in a cubicle. They want attracted to the GUI careers and the technology that excites the senses. They want to be happy and they want to make a difference in the world. We all did, right? That in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, the youth culture always wants to be happy and make a difference in the world because they recognize that there's opportunity to improve things. So we need to refresh the automotive culture to really get the best out of everyone, not just the students, but also the people that have been working for us for 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, to make sure that their ideas come to light, that they keep that fresh attitude and improve things. So really, have kids changed? You know, millennials, they have the advantage of they grew up with technology and access to information, right? You know, I had access to information. It was called a World Book Encyclopedia. And I read it 20 times, and that was all the knowledge in the world, right? Now, yeah, I mean, you know, I hate to say college is irrelevant, but if you have a desire to learn, it's all available on the internet for you at no cost. So paying tuition is really just, you know, it's really to get the degree, but if you really have a thirst for knowledge, you never stop learning. Yeah, that's fantastic. But like generations before us, we got old, right? We've changed. We're no longer the kids. We're now the leaders. We're now the parents. We have to take some responsibility for that. We raise these kids, right, to be who they are, and that's just changing of the times. But as company stockholders, and as future Social Security recipients, we really have a vested interest in all of these millennials out there that are working, because they are going to be ruling the world, right? And I remember even growing up, they said, well, eventually there's going to be some kid from the 60s that's going to be president. And then there's going to be some kid from the 70s who's going to be president. It's a natural turnover of positions and people, and they are here to stay. So as leaders, we need to help them succeed in their career now and in the future, because we depend on it. Our economy depends on it. Our Social Security depends on it. Our companies depend on it. So we've got to take a large role in that. I did an unscientific survey. I teach a couple of classes at Wayne State, and I asked my students, hey, you know, what are your thoughts on these things? And every one of them said they expect to be at an employer for 3 to 5 years. There's, you know, I have no expectation for a 30-year career or what have you, but they go into it saying, I'm going to change jobs. Not will I like it, will I stay, but they go into it saying, I'm going to leave you. The vast majority want to be entrepreneurs, right? Owning a business, that's cool, it's easy, money comes in, there's no sacrifice, there's no hard work, right? You know, for those of you that have seen entrepreneurs, it's not that easy, but on TV you see the overnight successes. So the top 6 concerns, things that my students wanted out of an employer, number 6 was managers that coach. Okay, they still want to be led. They recognize that they don't know it all, and they need someone that can help them understand what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. They want friendly coworkers. To me, that says environment, right? They want to work with people that they get along with and can collaborate with. They want a modern workspace. Again, the cube farm, you know, that being alone all day, they recognize that's not how companies do it anymore. Someone that I know in Detroit that works in non-automotive put in a tree house in their facility so the millennials could climb up in the tree and have some quiet time and work. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, they love it. You know, we have very low turnover with these people because they like being in the tree house. You know, all right, good. They want vacation time. Naturally, they want to have some time off. They want flexible schedules. I understand that. But the number one thing, and it's kind of interesting because it kind of bookends. The middle part is all kind of culture and how I work. But, you know, number 6 started with managers that coach. And then the most important thing is competitive pay and advancement. They actually want to see their future charted out. You know, they want to make sure that they're paid appropriately and there's room for advancement to grow their career. So just sticking people in the cube and saying, I'm going to just put projects at you and let you go is really not what they want. They want some involvement and they want to know where they're going. So we have to slow this job hop mentality that people just change jobs every 2 or 3 years. It's costly. We were talking yesterday, and it could be $6, $8, $10, $15,000 per employee to get them ramped up into their position. That's 6 months, of time that they could, that they're not completely effective. So how do we, slow that so that they're not changing so often and bring value to the organization? But it's easy for young people to change jobs, right? They're not tied down. They want to be challenged, so they get dissatisfied, very quickly. They want to earn more money because the information's available, right? If you go on Glassdoor and some of these, publications, they say a buyer with 2 years experience, this is the average in the Midwest. They know what other people make. And they talk amongst themselves too, so they know if the person across the table is making more than they are, because they talk, because that's just what they do. And so sometimes they know that other people can make, or they can make more money in other places, and they're worth it. And if they're not recognized, they're going to leave. And it's really easy to find a job. When we were young and we wanted a job, you had to maybe go to the university, to the job board, and see what was available for entry level, or you went through the papers and looked who's looking for a dispatcher or whatever it might be. Now, it's online. In fact, now the recruiters come to us and say, here's 17 jobs that are available in your area, right? They get these and they see them and they say, well, heck, I can see myself doing that job. They're making twice as much money, and they go for it. I can't blame them. So, do millennials need anything different than we did when we were 24, 25 years old? Leadership sets the tone, right? You want good leaders when you're young because that helps you become successful, helps you learn. They want good communication. They want answers to their questions quickly so they can continue working on their projects. And they want feedback. Was it good? Was it bad? The environment. I think I wanted a good environment to work on, when I was young, but you have to make the office someplace you want to spend time. You have to make it inviting. You have to have activities, a team environment, and young people, and I completely relate to this because I don't get this, is time to play. Like using new technologies, being trained and playing with the possibilities of even something as simple as OneNote or PowerPoint, just how does it work? And you need time to experiment because that's how they grow, because they grew up with technology. And so having time to play, casual meeting areas, working with people, and they're great to test new technology. If I was testing a new warehouse management system, I don't know that I would give it to me to test. I'd give it to someone that's 25 and let them use it to learn the business. It's experience building to have them test the new technology. Compensation. Earnings has to be consistent with the value recognized outside the organization. I've lost many people over the years because I've trained them, developed them so well that they were more value to somebody else than to me, right? And so back in the day when routing software first came to the scene, it was very complicated to use, and we would train somebody and would send them to classes and take months, and they'd finish that class, and within 6 months, every person left the organization because we didn't recognize and award them for that increased knowledge. They were more valuable outside. So you have to look at your people and say, has the training that I provided them, our company provided them, made them more valuable and be able to get them the rewards that they need? Recognition. A players know they're A players, right? And they also need to know that you recognize that they're an A player. And it doesn't have to be a formal process, but just to take people aside and say, you really knocked it out of the ballpark on this one. You're an A player, and we're going to make sure we recognize you and take care of you. And again, HR people say, well, money's not everything. Well, when you're making $32,000 a year, money is everything because you want to survive. But other recognitions have great value on the short term, right? Just to keep people just just in the zone, right? So a gift card, a lunch. That's a way how I reward a lot of people is, hey, let's go to lunch. And then we can spend time getting to know somebody. Flexibility. There's a reason why today started at 9 a.m. and not 7 a.m. Right? Everybody's out late. And so it's better to have someone come in at 10 o'clock that's refreshed and ready to rock than come in at 6:30 and be hungover and tired, right? Now, for me, I don't go out at night. I'm an old guy. So getting up early and coming to work, that's my fun. But I've got young guys that work for me, and, they come in 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, and I never complain about it, because they get the job done, and they're living their life, and they come in when they're refreshed. Now, I don't want them coming in at 1 o'clock, but 8:30, 9 o'clock, doesn't matter to me. I'm not a clock watcher. I'm a job, a task, accomplishment person. So did we get the job done? If you did it in 4 hours, great. Let's all go and get a bite to eat. So that flexibility is great. Offering 410s, whatever it might be. It's about getting the work done and moving forward. Vacations. North America has a real problem with vacations. We didn't escape Europe because vacations were too long. My European counterparts, those of you that are here, get a ton of holidays and vacation time. But we offer 2 weeks vacation to entry-level people. That is just a recipe for burnout. I get 5 weeks. I don't use them all, but it's nice to have because you could take a day off here, go canoeing, whatever it is. But 2 weeks is just not enough. And I think the more progressive companies are saying, yeah, we get this. In fact, I've seen a couple companies actually say, we have unlimited vacation time. And you can take off time whenever you need to with proper notice and preparation, because it's about the job, it's about getting the job done, and you're more successful when you have a feeling of balance. Even though I don't use the vacation time, knowing that I have it gives me balance because I've got flexibility. Mentoring. That's a big item that I think we need to do better at as a whole. Millennials need examples of professional behavior. They need to understand what the business is, the big picture, not the small picture. It takes time to learn that. They really need someone that gets to know them. Who am I? What do I want to do? I've got a guy that works for me, a young man, about 3 years out of college. And as a reward, I took him out to lunch to get to know him. And he said to me, you know what? I love to barbecue. Afterwards I found out he brings in barbecue for the office so all the people could try his barbecue. And I found out that his dream is to own a barbecue restaurant and one of those trucks that barbecue you pull on your and I said to him, I said, why don't you do it? I'm not tied into him working for me to be happy, but I want him to be a better person. And I'll help him get there. And he was shocked that I would actually help him pursue his dream outside of the company, right? But that's what a mentor does. It helps a person find out who they are. It's just not a company thing. It's a person thing. It's a people thing. And then we need to teach them to be a mentor also. So young people that can mentor other young people is helpful because college kids and high school kids respect people in their 20s. They can relate to them better than someone like me. And then sometimes you just need to tell them to suck it up, buttercup. This is the rough world and you're a part of it. 5 things a smart company does from Inc. magazine. They provide workplace flexibility. They provide adequate support and feedback. They coach instead of micromanage. They offer competitive salaries. And they provide opportunities to contribute to society. But, I found some of these stats interesting. 84% of millennials are worried about ensuring their financial stability. I think I've seen some information lately about how much money people have actually saved for retirement. Millennials care about that. they see what's happening. And of course, 56% feel stress about paying down their debt, and that's the student loan crisis that we have. And I see that with my students all the time. Students with $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 in student debt, they've got payments higher than a house payment, you know. And so I really think that one of the opportunities to retain people is to offer some type of program that if you stay with us for 5 years or 7 years and develop, we will offer some type of incentive that will go against your student debt to make sure that you know, if I'm gonna spend $8,000 training somebody every year to replace you, that adds up fast. So why not offer someone a $50,000 bonus if they stay 7 years to pay off their student debt and pay for the MBA program, right? People stay for that. So thank you. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter and all that. I do a lot of speaking. This is me with my beard. It's not quite as nice. There's a lot of gray in that beard. But I definitely appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with all of you and Automotive Logistics for putting on the event. This is a great event every year. Thank you.
Come on, I think we need a millennial moment. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, cheers. Thank you. I have to particularly thank you for actually counting me as a millennial, which is rather probably a fairly generous assessment of my own, considering I still grew up with mixtapes and, you know, I'm a fairly analog person in general. But I mean, I think that was a really interesting and inspiring presentation. I think it's a reminder to everyone when we talk about 2025, maybe we tend to be talking about the technology, the connectivity, all of the kind of specifics and the systems that are going into it. But I mean, it comes down to people in so many ways, and it comes down to the people you train, how you keep them, how you develop them. And you know, there are some differences and things to keep in mind with millennials, for sure. You can ask Louis how much holiday he has to give me to keep me. Actually, he brings me to all these conferences, and he calls that holiday. So, no. No, but thanks, Mike. I really enjoyed that. I think that was a valuable presentation for everyone. Next up, Kerry Zielinski, Vice President of Business Development North America for Syncreon.
Good morning, everyone. First off, I wanted to thank Louis and Christopher for allowing me to speak today. I've been going to these conferences for about 10 years or so, and so this is the first chance I've been in a position to be able to talk live and in person to folks, so it's an honor for me to do that. Another thing, just to thank the folks, Sergio for hosting yesterday's event. That was a wonderful afterglow, and I appreciate that. Ryder did a wonderful job picking the location yesterday. Appreciate that. A round of applause for that. That was a That's few things. Feedback. I was a little late getting back from the afterglow. My car, my autonomous car, kept going around the block looking for a parking space the entire time, and ran out of fuel because it couldn't find a space. And so I said it was a gold restaurant, and for some reason it thought Gold Club, and so it started headed in Atlanta. Never mind, that's a bad joke. So the clicker. This. Just a few slides, and when I've been in the audience, I absolutely hate when people do commercials, so I'll be really fast with this. This is a bit about Syncreon. I went through quite a change in my life. I had been with another 3PL for about 23 years, and about 3 months ago, I joined Syncreon. It's an excellent company, fully provide contract logistics, and anybody who wants to stop at our booth, I'd appreciate talking to you later. These are some of our key clients. We do technology and automotive, and the two different sectors basically blend very well together, as some of the companies that provide automotive now are now technology companies as well. So it's a very good blend of the two sectors. This is our global footprint, mostly North America, Europe, but we do some things when customers take us to other places in the world, we go there with them. So it's exciting, and like I said, appreciate talking to you. First off, Most of the slides that I put together in the airplane coming here on Monday after Louis asked me to do this, people yesterday spoke much more eloquently than I could about the topics. And so I will defer to some of that, but I will bring it up a little bit later about certain things. But these are some thoughts that I had and also Will Johnson had from Synchron, some excellent things that will happen with the experience of autonomous cars. First off, my car already bothers me. It tells me the air in my tires are low. It tells me I'm not in the lane. But I can just imagine how much it's going to start bothering me when it's an autonomous car, because it's going to tell me all kinds of things. It's going to tell me things like, you didn't brush your teeth today. It's going to say all kinds of stuff to me because it's going to be completely active with the experience. Does the car listen to me or does it listen to my wife? Because if I'm in the car, you can think to yourself, hey, she says, hey, turn left, and I say turn right. Is it going to listen to me? Is it going to listen to my wife, right? These are the things we have to figure out. You're going to clean the car, for instance. You're going to go out and you're going to wash the outside of the car. You're going to vacuum inside the car, and then maybe you're going to have to delete the cookies so that no one knows where the heck you've been for the last 3 days, right? So the driver's license experience is going to change because I grew up, I went to the DMV, and you sat there and they asked you can you parallel park, can you miss a cone, can you back up? Well, that whole experience is going to change because now you're going to get in the car and you're going to say, the instructor is going to sit next to you and go, okay, show me you can use this car. And they're going to say, okay, drive me to the drugstore. Come on, I mean, how much experience is that going to be for people, right? So, and that's an essential thing to get a driver's license. For me, it was a big deal, so that's going to change too. A couple other ones. Sorry, I put some notes. We talked yesterday about the fact that the car can take you directly to the location you're going. You don't have to stay in a hotel. The folks from CHEP were talking about the fact that parking spaces can go away and hotels can go away. But you think about it, bars are going to be open all night because people can just get in the car and the car can take them home. So the whole experience in Europe, for instance, of them living closer to, to the bars or walking home instead of driving, they can drive now. So that's going to change the experience for a lot of folks. Let's see, what kind I'm gonna, you go down the block and you see lost cat, lost dog. They're gonna be lost car posters. I can just see, because the car is gonna go on its own. It's gonna fall in love with another car, and the two cars are gonna go on a honeymoon together, and I'm never gonna see it again. So you're gonna have lost car, right? It's pink, it goes by the name of Elaine, it's gonna be one of those. I got a couple more and then I'll move on. Lover's Lane. What do we need Lover's Lane for anymore, right? You're gonna just sit in the car, you'll be able to, if anyone's seen the Volkswagen commercial that's been recent, they have this Dean Martin song that goes on. It's about a family, a little car. It's a Volkswagen Beetle, and they start out the family. They've got a little Beetle, and the car's moving like this, and now all of a sudden they come to the dealership and they need a bigger car. So now what's going to happen with these autonomous vehicles? Your family could grow exponentially now. So there's just no time you have to even go to Lover's Lane. My wife's going to have something else to decorate too, because it's a room. She's going to have pillows, a sofa. There's going to be pink. It's going to be a special place for my wife to decorate. Last thing is what happens to NASCAR? For God's sakes, folks. Think about it. You're going to just tell the car, hey, drive around in a circle for 300 miles, and I'm going to be in the back seat with a beer doing, hey, buy Budweiser, right? That's going to change. So anyway, seriously, though, I just want to talk a little bit about where we've come. The idea for this panel discussion was, supply chain is going to change. It's going to what's going to happen to it, it's going to, exponentially change. But in my career, we've gone through a tremendous amount of change already. We take it for granted. Mike and I have known each other for 30 years, and We originally started out with the entire sophisticated dots on maps. I don't know if you ever remember all that, but that's not that long ago that we designed routes by putting dots on maps and then figured it out. We figured out the distance. I mean, then we went into, packaging. If anybody gets Amazon's packages now, the packages are completely designed for that particular thing that comes to us. Back in the day, it was whatever box that they had, and they tried to fit whatever it was in those boxes. Now we efficiently are working on cube and delivery. And so that's, these are things that are going to exponentially change in the next 15, 20 years as we, have service parts and have different things that are required for our industry. During the career, obviously, computer, optimizations. It used to run 24 hours to run a simulation. Now we can do it practically on an app on our phone. We send signals to our drivers. We've got GPS in our trucks. We used to be phones, now we're GPS. Now the trucks will drive themselves to wherever we want them to go. So we've, just to give you a focus with this, it's incredible. There's RFD technology, and that seems old now. And a gentleman came to our booth, and he's talking about a technology in the cloud. Again, taking us a different direction, a whole other thing. Google Maps, Waze. I use Waze getting around. I don't know if people, it's a general app that's out there, but that's changed my driving pattern completely. Now it knows where the accident is. It tells me where the police are. It tells me there's a pothole. So it's, the efficiencies that we have. I used to go to the grocery store, used to go to the grocery store, and wife would tell you, go buy some cornflakes or something. And you go, oops, I didn't ask how big a box. I didn't ask what kind it was. I'd come home, the wife would be mad. That's not the one I wanted. Now I get on the phone, I call her, and she says specifically what she wants. And I've eliminated all that waste. And so that's the whole change that we see happening, is that we're eliminating a lot of the waste just from the technologies that we have. And then yesterday with the drones, that was a great technology advancement that I thought Venture brought up, of doing the yard check, another incredible advancement to the field. So progress is not a straight line. Some innovative things succeed and some fail. So we're going to go through a path in the next 20, 25, 20, 10 years. There's going to be a lot of different things that come to us that say, hey, this is great technology. But some of it, wow, Microsoft, great company, couldn't compete with Apple, the Zune. I bought one of those. It failed. It basically got taken off the market. Great technology. We have a refrigerator. That's a new product. It's a Samsung that came out. It's got a TV set in the front of it. To me, I have no need to stand in front of the TV to watch a TV program. Will it succeed? Will it fail? Will people like it? It's going to be trial and error. That's what's going to happen with the marketplace. We're going to have, as we talk about these autonomous cars or any cars that we can have, some markets are not going to use autonomous cars. India is not going to be ready for it. Do we build cars for India separate than we build them for the United States? Or how do we handle those different marketplaces? Because we're going to have to try to sell vehicles to the world. We have world cars. So anyway, progress is really optional. Another topic I wanted to bring up is just the great enabler that logistics is. In my lifetime, China has grown to be a huge commercial superpower. And if you think about it, if it wasn't for logistics, that product would never get here in an efficient, cheap manner that would allow it to compete with building it in Ohio or making it in Pittsburgh. The logistics itself, because of its efficiencies and cost advantages, has provided the ability for China to grow. So, same thing with Mexico. We rushed with lots of plants to Mexico, but political things can happen that could disrupt that. The cost of wages. They were talking about yesterday that BMW is going to pay some Mexican workers $1.10 an hour for their entry-level position. That's incredible. That just took my breath away, because I said, man, that's a very cheap wage. Can it be supportable? And will that go up? that changes the supply chain right now because so many plants that are in Mexico and so much, Mike can speak to this too, is that there's parts and manufacturing that's moved a tremendous amount to Mexico. So that changes the supply chain just from the wages standpoint and the fact of the cost of goods. Last thing to support, this is a passion of mine, is CSCMP, Apex, Work, AIAG. These are all organizations that are working to bring people together to talk about issues. I'm the Eastern Michigan Roundtable president for CSCMP. We have a shadow day every year, bringing in students that are future students in logistics. And the idea behind it is to try to get them to be the new us. When we're gonna retire, we need that passion, that success to move on and keep going in the future for our careers, or for their careers. So, we have made so much progress, but just for us to retire and go, sit on the bench and expect the new folks to come in, automotive especially has a whole generation of people that are missing. My son, he's 30 years old. He works at General Motors. He's an engineer. There isn't anybody from 42 to 52 that he didn't hire much because the auto industry was struggling so much they didn't hire. And so the responsibility that he's been given at age 30 is tremendous. And he's stepping up to it, but there's a gauge gap there. And we can't do that in logistics. Just as we looked around the room, we're a lot of folks that are in our late 40s, 50s, and so forth, and I'm 4 or 5 years from retirement myself, and I look and I say, hey, who's gonna take over my job? Who's gonna replace us? Who's going to do that? Because the millennials, the folks that we're talking about here, they have to get involved and they have to be as passionate as we are to keep that, the optimizations, the success that we have achieved in our 20, 30 years of doing this. But by all means, please, CSCMP is great. They have a conference later this year. It's in September. It's in Atlanta. Recommend it because it's not automotive. Really, it's all supply chain. And I recommend that you step out of your comfort zone and go listen to Kraft Foods, listen to Domino's Pizza, listen to other industries that are doing different things in the supply chain that we haven't thought of. We always think that automotive is the most sophisticated supply chains, and sometimes you learn things by stepping out of your comfort zone and going to something else. So talked a little bit about this. I see another big challenge is that for the last 30 years, our OEMs have basically had a one-day schedule, and they flip it every day and decide what they're going to build the next day. And that itself, I think, is going to be, again, prediction for me, that's going to change because we can do it faster. We can do it more frequently. They can make decisions, you think about it, they can make decisions 4 times a day, maybe to build different things. As long as they have the parts, why do they have to make a decision once a day? So as we have more data and more, we're in tune with the marketplace better and know what cars we want to build and what trucks we want to build, they could get to that point of making the decisions on what build it is more frequently. And then a world standard for the roads and the technology as we go autonomous and go things, we're all going to need to have some input into that, not only our country, but other countries and what cars we build and what roads they are. So these organizations that I mentioned, the Apex, the Works, CSCMPs, getting involved in your local government, those are all things that you can provide input to, and you can attend meetings and so forth and help define what that is. So I encourage that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kerry. I think, again, some very insightful points there. Yeah, I mean, I didn't appreciate that ride home yesterday. That's also why I was late. I was stuck in that autonomous car going around the block for a couple of hours with you there. So that just explains everything, doesn't it? Again, some really interesting and important points there from someone who's had a long career in logistics and can see kind of how it's going to change and what we need to kind of be doing to stay ahead of that. So thank you for your presentation there, Kerry. We're going to open up for Q&A now. hopefully, you guys want to pose some questions to our panelists as well. Maybe I can start just with bringing John into the conversation here. From the point of view of Pirelli, I mean, when we think of a tire, for example, we might think, it's rubber, it's round, it's going to be, it's the original technology in some ways, right? So how is Pirelli looking to the future, both in its product and how, in terms of the smart tire or what we see changing, and what's the impact for the logistics and supply chain to support that?
Sure. First of all, in the last year, we've had a lot of change going on at Pirelli. We've split our companies up basically into two separate companies. We have our Pirelli Consumer Division, which is car, light truck, motorcycle tires, and then our heavy truck, agricultural tires have formed a new company called Prometeon. We have a separate division called Pirelli Digital, which is focused on the future. I think we've come to the realization in every company now that if you're not changing, you're going to be dead soon. And there are too many things going on too quickly, and you can't just be reactive. You have to be thinking about what the next business model is. So this Pirelli Digital Group was formed at the beginning of the year, and they're looking at these challenges, whether it be in product, whether it be in manufacturing, whether it be in some business process. What does the company need to do? What do we have to change to be at the forefront of technology? You mentioned that, tires are round and black. Actually, at the beginning of this year, we also rolled out some new products. First of all, we're going to have colored tires. You can take a look at that on the internet. At the Geneva Auto Show, we rolled this out. You can actually pick from thousands of colors, and your tire can be in that color if you drive one of these very high-end cars. We also have connected tires. They're called cyber tires. It's using our Kinesso or connected technology. This is going to allow your tire to talk to your car, to talk to your smartphone, and tell you things about your driving and about your vehicle performance that you wouldn't know directly from your car. So these are some new products and new technologies that we're bringing to the market that haven't really been there before. In terms of what Pirelli Digital is doing, we're looking at digital manufacturing. Automating the manufacturing process as much as possible. We do have some robotics manufacturing that is very advanced, but then we also have some very traditional manufacturing. This is very people intensive, and in the end, the idea is that with digital manufacturing, you're going to be able to reduce your planning cycles down to daily, hourly. Make changes in your processes very quickly that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions, comments from the audience? Right in the front, the young gentleman.
This is Ivan Hernandez, Daimler. Mike, this question is for you. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on the personal development path that you were listing in your presentation. My experience has been that setting a personal development path for somebody is something that evolves day after day. Yeah, because that person is showing you through their interactions, through the problems, through the challenges, how that person reacts, adapts, imagines solutions, and provide answers also to the challenges. The way I understood your presentation, you said millennials would like to have a personal development path. I just want to clarify if your point is that millennials should have a development path or that we should continue working day in and day out. Because for me, developing a person is like reading or driving a car right now, that you have to be very attuned to what is happening, and okay, maybe we went north, but now we have to go left because there is a pothole here. So what is your experience with personal development plans?
Well, I was very fortunate that at a young age, I worked for a company that thought about that, and what they did is they brought out this new technology called Post-it notes. And they put up a piece of paper across the wall, and they said, okay, right now you're entry level. And they said, here's, your job, and you put your Post-it note at that job. And then down on each swim lane,
We need to work on getting some digital mics, I think.
down each swim lane was another job in the organization, all the way to the CEO of the company. And they spent time with me and said, okay, this is your Post-it note here. If you want to be CEO of the company, you need to put Post-it notes in a lot of positions. And so you need to spend time in operations, you need to spend time in sales, and kind of charted it out. And then, of course, when I was 23, 24, I wanted to be president of the company. And then as I got a little bit older, I said, that's really not my goal. And especially when you start to have families, you want to be home by 5 o'clock. And so they would actively save it, and then you'd move your Post-it notes around because your goals change. And so the fact that my manager and the HR people reviewed it with me, and so in a company like Daimler that has significant areas to grow, you need to understand that there's places you can work to enjoy your job, be satisfied, but that changes. And so getting to know the person and having a structure, because if that person can't visualize themselves 30 years down the path, then they're going to visualize themselves someplace else, and they don't have anything to work towards. And so I think, spending the time, like you said, to get to know people, and it makes a difference. And we all want to know where we're going. We don't leave the house and say, I'm going to end up someplace at the end of the day. I wonder where it's going to be. You want to visualize, hey, this is where I'm going to go. This is what I'm going to get accomplished and what I'm going to do. I think that's healthy. So, good question.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? From Neil right here in the second table.
I'll direct this to you, but anybody on the panel really, I'm always talking to our team members about their careers in terms of, do you want to be a generalist or do you want to be a specialist? Do you want to be like an SME, or do you want to just cover a lot of different areas? And that reminded me when you were talking about the Post-it notes, you have to put your Post-it notes in a lot of places. Were they saying put the Post-it notes in a lot of places left to right or vertically?
Well, it could be both. And so a person that was, say, in accounting, there was an accounting path, and a lot of it was, I want to move up from one level to another level. But, we can't forget that it takes a lot of different types of people to work in a company. You need the steady eddies that, hey, I love being a supervisor, I love being a buyer, and I'm going to do this for the next 10 years. Fantastic. You can't have an organization of all type A players. And so you looked at, as we were going through everybody's charts, some people, moved across and up and down, and then for some people, steady. Hey, I love being a sales rep, and I don't want to do anything else, and that's perfect. You need all different types of people. And it was a valuable exercise because we all shared the information so we could support each other. It was the organization, I thought, was, for the 90s, was very advanced in terms of what they were trying to accomplish. So there was all kinds. Mine, unfortunately, mine was rather limited because my goal was for them to pay for my MBA, and then I was going to leave, and I did. The very day I got the degree. And I was the last person to not sign an agreement to pay tuition back. So they weren't very happy that I left and they didn't get the benefit from my education. But there was no plan to reward me. I could double my pay, by leaving the organization. So that's what I did. And it's a lesson that, I learned going forward, that you have to reward people. So
I can add to that too. We're seeing a lot of students coming out of school with degrees, and a lot of folks are getting general business degrees, or they're getting degrees that aren't necessarily in a specific field. And they're trying to, and the folks that I've mentored, they're trying to figure out what is their passion, what do they like doing, even after they have their degree, which You'd think that wouldn't necessarily be so because they've just spent 4 years trying to be something or get a job in some particular sector or role, and yet they haven't really figured out the entire thing yet. So the Post-it notes or something has to be done, so you're mentoring them and figuring out what their passions are, where they want to go within an organization. I was lucky myself. I actually started as an accountant, of all things. I have a degree in accounting. I worked in accounting for 4 or 5 years, and then I got into doing some engineering work for logistics because I was doing pricing models, and I moved into it. But it was a passion. They could see I liked and enjoyed doing new business. And after I got involved in the new business and the pricing, someone mentored me and said, you could probably be good in sales. You're not, you understand the products, you understand the solution. You might not be the most smoothest guy in the world, and I'm not, and I recognize that, but my sincerity, my honesty, my engineering pulled me through to be able to tell people the real story. And so I get trusting relationships with my customers, and I tell them what, I even sometimes tell them that ProTrans has a great idea. Their business model is fabulous, and I'll tell people that because it's a really good business model. Competitor, sure, but when somebody has something that my customers might benefit from, why would I not tell them that? That's what we're here for. We're trying to make it all better. I have products that I think we're superior at, and I will tell you that. But that's what a good salesperson should do, is direct you towards the right things. So anyway, getting back to what I was trying to say is that you got to find the passions and find what it is that the students or the new employees like to do and what they do with the most energy they put into it. Because if they come in at 9 o'clock and they're still lazy, that doesn't help. They still got to be passionate when they come in at 9 o'clock. So and you want that enthusiasm. So.
Thank you. Gary. Oh, we'll take the question there while it's there.
Lynn Failing with Kimmel. It's interesting to hear us struggle between the technology process of innovation and the social and organizational changes that either coalesce around it or act to block it. One of the interesting things, because I work in supply chain across a number of industry verticals, that I'm sure you have read about, and I'll be interested not only in the experience of the panelists, but of some of the participants here, is to what extent we've learned from the new money in automotive, and I mean by that the Google money, the Apple money, that sort of the Tesla money. The thing that I have learned from them in terms of their hiring policies and practices is that diversity is not an EEOC issue, it's an innovation issue. So hiring people of all sorts of spectrums, it goes back to your comment about general expertise. They want to know talent, and that's my phone. And what I'm interested in is to what extent we as organizations are looking at how we can change policy to create innovation through diversity, and what experiences companies have had in this area in making that happen, and what success stories they can tell us.
Well, I can start with, it's listening. It's really all about listening and not talking. We do way too much talking to people and not listen to our employees. They have ideas. They have different ways of doing things. The best companies are the ones that listen to their employees and figure out, wow, that's a better way. We never thought of that. Or that's inefficient. We could do it a different way. And I think we need to listen more. To a simple answer to that. But.
Well.
Yeah, but we also have to make sure that we're telling everybody at all levels what's going on in the company.
Sure.
I mean, sometimes things are happening in the company and people just hear about it as a rumor or something like that. They don't hear what's actually changing in the company, and it's not being communicated all the way down to the very, to all levels of the company.
Sure. Transparency is important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think, with it, it's a strange thing because I make a point to hire, people that can communicate, that are self-aware, that have maybe wisdom that they've acquired at a young age. And what, just by looking at those personality traits, I'd say that 50% or 60% of my staff is actually not what you see in this room. It's a diverse group of people, and they bring experiences together and work well together. And so to me, it's just, I look at it as the fabric, of Detroit and of our life. That good ideas come from many different people, and it's part of managing. You manage the best people, and you get the best out of them, and the results are typically positive and fantastic. So I think it's an important part of our organization. And we also do a lot with veterans at Cooper Standard. So we bring in people, again, diverse background, but we focus on, people that have served our country and have experiences and global knowledge to bring to the table, because a lot of them have been deployed everywhere. So that experience is greatly valued. So, thank you.
One last thing I was going to say.
Yeah, sure.
Is also, you're looking for people that don't fear change or fear taking a risk, and that's a valuable asset to any company or anybody trying to grow within that you're trying to mentor or new employees. I found the people that could travel. They were fearful of going to the airport, getting a rental car, doing things like that. Just you take that for granted, but some people haven't had life experiences like that, and it opens up their world. They can see, travel, experience life, and see how things are different.
Gary mentioned you studied accounting, or you trained an accountant. Good thing you got out of that racket, because we heard yesterday that's going to be automated in a couple of years anyway.
Sure.
Mike, if I know you well enough, I think you studied rock and roll or something and then fell into supply chain later. John, I'm not sure, but I have a lot of people, at least perhaps of this generation, kind of fell into logistics and supply chain, maybe got an MBA or supplemental training later, background maybe in engineering or something else. But now, it seems increasingly, and Mike, you're teaching in a logistics program. If I'm not mistaken, Wayne State's launching an automotive supply chain program. How important is it that the people you're recruiting are trained in this sector? Is that really important in your hiring? Does it make a big difference, or in fact, are you equally looking to take from other sides?
Well, I think it makes a big difference, and the university that I teach at, it's a special situation. We're not a campus that's kind of a utopian society with quarter beer nights and free pizza on Fridays. It's in the city. And so a majority of our students have jobs. They're working through, they're keeping their debt down, and they have internships or jobs at the airport, at the 3PLs, at trucking companies, because Detroit is still such a hub of manufacturing. And so I get a lot of students that are maybe a little bit older, maybe they're 24, 25, they're just graduating because they're on a 6-7 year plan because they're working full time. But you get this student they're bright, they're energetic, but they've got 3 or 4 years of practical experience that really helps them understand the business quicker, because they've been in a world that's balanced. And I was in the same situation where I had to take 4 classes a semester and work 30, 35 hours a week to pay for it. And so you get someone who's pretty driven, and they're just not placed there because the parents want to put them someplace for 4 years. And so I think that experience that they get, so I always encourage, internships. You get a position, get a part-time position. UPS has a fantastic program. I don't think there's anybody here from UPS, but at their Louisville hub, they have a big part-time workforce, and they generally work in the evening because that's when the planes come in. They hire a workforce from, I think it's the University of Louisville, and Louisville set up dormitories specifically for their employees. UPS pays for their tuition, their books, their dormitory, and the only requirement is, through their 4 years, they've got to come to UPS every night at 7 o'clock and process packages. Right? What a great experience, what a great program for these students to launch a career in really any major. It's a great experience. So I think it's valuable.
Okay. Perhaps anyone else can comment on that side. John, from
Yeah,
your
I mean, I'll say that I'm kind of a product of what you were discussing. I had a degree in geology, and I practiced geology for 6 years, but I got into supply chain because I was working on a project overseas, and I found out half my job was ordering stuff and stocking supplies for my project. And so when I went to business school, that's why I focused on supply chain. I've hired people when I'm interviewing people. If somebody has a real passion, whether it's for the product or for the company or even for just the function, they say, listen, I love logistics and that's my passion. I'm more likely to hire that person over somebody maybe that has, quote, a better education, some better experience, because I know that at least while they're working for me, they're focused and that they really are passionate about what they're going to be doing. So.
Just to bring up something that Mike shared with me, he has a test that he has in his program, and it's a supply chain automotive type, several suppliers, different packaging, different distances of locations and so forth. And he runs that test as something just to challenge his students to do a practical real world thing. And I think because of his experience as in the industry and being a professor in the program, he can bring that mentoring of real life into the school program in the process. So that's a huge advantage for the Wayne State students because he has real life things that he can bring up. We've seen some students that come out of school and unless they do an internship or do something like that, the book work isn't as good as the practical stuff that you can pick up. So it helps to get into something supply chain, something business before you get into upper levels within the logistics industry. So, but it's a great test. Anybody, I don't know if you want to share it with anybody, but anybody wants to do this test, it's kind of fun because he's got an optimal solution and you can work towards it. But the other part of it shows if you're a puzzle person, because you can put it together in 20 minutes, but if you don't challenge that solution with alternative solutions to see if that one beats the original one, you can see how much that person really cares about coming up with the best solution. Because that's what we do. We're trying to I worked in engineering for quite a while in my career, and I had very good work with a company called Sumitomo. And what they taught me was he would work all night. I'd come up with a solution, and he would work all night, honest to God, trying to beat whatever I came up with. And he wasn't a logistics person, but he took it upon himself to try to come up with alternate ways to deliver the freight or bring the freight in that would beat mine. And it pushed me to say, I can't just go with the vanilla solution or the first thing I did. I have to come up with several alternatives to be able to say, is that the optimal? Can I tell my customer that I worked on that it's the best solution that I came up with or the company came up with? So, but take the test, it's pretty cool.
I have a question here.
I'm Catherine Hayes. I'm the director of the South Carolina Automotive Council. And want to give a shout out and a credit to Robert Bosch because 2 weeks after I got my master's, I got promoted. So good to Bosch. You may have already discussed this. I'm sorry because I came in a little bit late. But my question is, there aren't a lot of people here like me. I'm a mechanical engineer with a master's degree in engineering management. And there aren't a lot of people. The industry hasn't really changed much. Unfortunately, the rate of women engineers graduating is the exact same as when I graduated. So it's we only have about 4.5% of the American population that graduates in engineering, and only 18% of them are women. So like less than 1%. So is there any concepts out there that you're working with, any of you working with, to be a little bit more flexible? Of course, with all the technology, I mean, there are some options. And I ended up leaving Bosch because I, unfortunately, was the only one in the family that could have a kid. So I did it. And then I really only wanted 6 months of flex time. That's really all I asked for. And no offense to Bosch, they just couldn't imagine that a manager, a technical manager, would be not there all the time. And I lived 6 miles from the plant. I was willing to come in if I was needed. And my concept was, I said, look, my boss is gone 11 out of 20 days a month, and he's out of the country. But if I really need him, I can find him. And so it would be the same for my people. And so what I'm getting around to is, I think manufacturing and logistics are still very old school in thinking about flexibility of working with women and keeping them in management tracks. And a lot of people leave. And so you kind of have that, cycle, and we struggle to get to the tops of organizations. So that's my question.
Interesting.
I'll let you take that, Carrie.
I think change happens by men and women coming to decisions in HR solutions that are beneficial for the company. I've not been in an HR position myself personally. I have hired as many women as I have men. As a matter of fact, I think I've hired more women. It's a personal thing, I think, when you're evaluating talent, to pick and choose people that are best qualified. So you have that general issue that's out there, is you're trying to pick the most qualified. But at the same time, as we noted here, we do want a diverse group, because opinions and solutions come from a diverse group of people with different thoughts and different backgrounds. So I think any company has to have a culture, and that's, we're part of that culture. So we go back to our offices and go back to our companies, and we have to be that. We can't blame someone else and say, well, we just don't do that. I think it's part of us to be involved, be engaged in our companies. So I don't know if that answers it, but it's difficult, because it's like voting for a president or anything else. You're part of a bigger group. You're one vote, and sometimes you say, well, that vote doesn't count, but it does. It does make a difference if I walk into HR and I say this. Why this is becoming more personal too, is my daughter-in-law is having a baby coming up in June 9th. And so she's at, I don't want to mention it, it's an OEM in Detroit, that she's going to take some time off and so forth. And she didn't announce that she was pregnant until a certain point, and that was kind of strange. I just thought, in this day and age, she wasn't comfortable enough announcing this early, because she was up for a promotion, and there was a chance that she might not get it if they realized that she's going to be gone for a little while. Wow, I just couldn't believe this day and age that was an issue, but I'm facing it right now. And so I'm empathetic to the situation, but I'm not sure.
I think part of the issue in automotive logistics is the razor-thin margins and the understaffing of so many departments that it becomes an issue, because there just is not enough bench strength to accommodate these situations. And so I've had several managers that work for me that have taken leave, and I find myself counting down the weeks until they come back, because I need them so much. And so I don't think that we staff appropriately as an organization to say, hey, we just have to accept the fact that, again, I can't step up and do that same job and have a child, so we have to have some flexibility in the workforce to be able to work from home. Or, what I tried to do for one employee, and I wasn't successful, is after the allotted period, I wanted to do a part-time program, and to say, can she, she'd like to work 2 days a week for 4 months. Can we do that? And the answer was, no, we don't have that structure. I'm like, well, that's, let's build it. And I wasn't successful in that, because the industry or the company just didn't accept it. So I think we have to have those flexible, programs, and and it's, we see more like, okay, we'll give the father time off too. All right, that's great progress, but it doesn't really address the needs of the family, of what's good for them. Because again, I would rather have an A player come back in 18 months or a year than have to hire and retrain people over and over again to just because someone made an important life choice that they should all be able to make. I worked with one company I didn't work for them, but I did some projects with them. And they actually employed a position called the Director of Happiness. and her job, now it was a transportation company, so you had both people in the office and you had drivers, and we know turnover of drivers is a big issue. And so her role was to make sure that management and the organization did everything that they could to reduce turnover in the organization, because it was such a tough, such a big expense. They were offering anybody that recruited 3 people to work for the company in 12 months, they bought them a Harley Davidson. Because they're like, $18,000 for a bike? That's nothing compared to replacing people, year in and year out, over and over again. And so they put in these incentive programs, and all of a sudden, people loved it. She put in a program where every weekend, employees on leave, everybody could bring their families into the office, and they put the football game on the big screen, and they had a little snack for everybody to watch the game. It's these little things that make families part of the business, because we don't just employ people, we employ families. And entrepreneurs know this especially. I talked to one entrepreneur, he said, I've put 750 kids through college. They take your family seriously. It's part of their family. And good companies do that. And so I think it'll improve, and I'm behind it 100%. So
I'll give props out to Ford Motor Company for one thing. There's a couple buyers that have a job share, and they basically were accommodated for a specific situation. So the 2 of them, one works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the other works Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they were able to accommodate work-life balance. And that was a wonderful thing that they were able to accommodate for them. So I think it's again, listening to people, figuring out what they need to support keeping them as employees, because they were valuable to the organization.
Yeah, I mean, HR has gotten more flexible, but sometimes the change is not quick enough. I mean, I've had recently, I've lost some experienced people just because the flexibility just wasn't there on the company side. And, I mean, in our industry, the relationships with suppliers and coworkers, I mean, yeah, you can bring in somebody experienced, but you just can't replace that relationship that they have with other people overnight.
Yeah, and it's curious because, if this was an HR conference, we would flip the audience and it would be 90% women and 10% men. So they're actually in a position where they can be very influential in their company by saying we need these programs. But yet it still doesn't quite, it doesn't get to the C-suite to say we need to change it. But at our company, our HR department's 90% women, and it's still slow to progress on these ideas. I don't know if Bosch is the same, in terms of their HR makeup, but.
Well, just as a comment on that, I talked to the vice president of North America about it, and he said at the time, if we do this for you, we'll have to do it for others. I said, no kidding, right?
Yes.
You want to bring people, if you want to bring women into management, you're going to have to deal with it. At 30 years old, it's like, am I going to do this or not? And my husband would have done it, but he can't. So, I mean, it's just, hasn't changed, and that's my concern, because I see that we all agree that diversity is a good thing. We all agree that we really need, even if you don't think it's the right thing to do, we need the workforce. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so where are we going to get them?
And what a short-term way of looking at the business, to look at it that way. You got to do it for everyone, because the good people are worth it. That's a long-term vision. Short-term vision is, I got to do it for everybody. The business will be better because of it. I really believe that.
What will really help is when science advances enough for men to be able to carry babies, and I think that's what we're all going to be hoping for. So we have some more questions, but can we do quickly, we'll use our red and green card quickly, just because, green if your company does offer these sort of flexible working arrangements, and red if they don't.
Oh.
So actually surprising amount of green. So that's hopefully a sign that there is progress in some of these areas. But I think it's clearly a cultural change that needs to maybe also happen from the bottom up or from the middle up in some cases, So we have to keep pushing for this. We had another. Well, we'll start here. Yeah.
Good morning. My name's Ed Wanta. I'm with Toyota Motors North America. One of the things that we're experiencing, especially now that the unemployment rate is down to 4.4% nationally, is what we saw last month. But one of the big things that I think generationally we didn't talk about yet, but I'd like to hear your input is, I'll speak for myself, that when I came on board in the automotive industry, relocation, moving your family around to the different locations was kind of a requirement in this industry. Today, more and more people are less likely to relocate, and a lot more homebound is what we're seeing. Any input or experience or comments you can make on the change of no willingness to relocate?
You want to?
I'll give my son's example, just for right now. He had an opportunity to handle several different assembly plants, and it's a travel job now. It's not a permanent job. He can go there and work a week and then come back. He doesn't have to work there as a permanent position. So he's been accommodated for being able to have work-home balance to be home, which was an interesting setup for him. I think traditionally in automotive, we move plants and then we move people to those plants, and we move people to, and unfortunately we have model programs where they're only 3 to 5 years in contracts, and it's very difficult for people to pick up and move for 3 years for a piece of business, and then all of a sudden if they don't renew, now where do they go? And that's a valuable resource for the company. So in my career, I've seen a lot of good operators move from, say, Detroit to Kansas City, and then all of a sudden that work changes, and then what do you do with that person? Now you're stuck more moving costs and buying houses and transferring, or you hire there. And I think that's what, as our industry has more talented people all around the country, around the world, that do logistics, I think we're hiring more locally instead of taking talent and moving them around as much. So.
Yeah, and I think within our industry too, our locations aren't exactly where you want to live always. It's, I mean, Detroit's now somewhat, enticing to some people, but if you're in the corporate structure, you're just going to travel, but don't necessarily have to move anymore, right? You could be based in one place, and it's you're Nashville or some beautiful cities to live in. But with the size of companies that bring people in, more people can work from home, the flexibility. You can travel short term on assignments, but it is tough to move people that are in the middle portion of their lives, right? When they're out of college, easy to move them, but they don't want to live in Hoboken, in Goldsboro, North Carolina, or some little town. They want a world, where they can meet people and do things. So it's easy to move them if you've got a great opportunity and something interesting and offer a lifestyle. On the flip side, those of us that have raised our children and they're in college or wherever, well, then they have a great deal of flexibility to move and relocate, but they also want a little bit of enjoyment in where they live and work, because I know I only have maybe 20, 25 summers left. I want to enjoy those summers. So you could move people, but boy, once they have kids and they start high school, they're really locked for a while. And so I try not to pressure those people to look, if you got people that are steady eddies, they can do their job, they're willing to travel 30% to get to plants, that's good enough for me. But relocating is hard, and you have to be on one end of the spectrum or the other. The people that have constantly moved their entire careers, I think to myself, oh my gosh, how do you pack and move every 5 years? That's a tough lifestyle, but some people do it.
Yeah, one other thing is the impact of college debt. It's huge. I personally, again, a personal experience, I know some folks that they have $50,000 of debt, and they're living at home a lot of times with mom and dad still. And for them to get a job and move to another city, that the amount of money it requires them to actually, pay for rent and pay for the transportation and so forth. When they're trying to pay their debt down, it's difficult for them to do that. And your first bullet point was they love mom and dad, and that was one of your things. And I don't think you were kidding. I think that's serious. There's a real bond there still with their parents because that's their safety net. Because if they can't pay the debt or they just got out of college and they got some things, mom and dad's still helping them some. So they're not moving.
And the relocation packages aren't like they used to be. It used to be you got a relocation. They bought your house and they paid all your bills. What we're doing now for a lot of people is we're saying we'll move you there, but we're going to nationalize you. So you'll go work in Germany. We're going to nationalize you. You will be a German employee, and so you have to pay your rent. You've got all the expenses. It's not, where all of a sudden you go away for 3 years and you come back with $150,000 in the bank because you've been saving money and not paying bills. It's not that way anymore. So it's not as enticing, to go do it. Cooper has, I think we've got 18,000 employees now. But we only have 11 expats around the world. We don't do it. We try to find the local people. I've requested it, like, hey, I'll go move, when my kids were younger. But they're like, yeah, it's too expensive. We're not going to do it. So.
If I can just quickly flip the question to the questioner, considering, there's been a slight relocation in Toyota recently that I think everybody knows about. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about some of the challenges that has brought, or maybe opportunities? Has it been difficult to retain people, keep your team? Have you had to refresh things? Because that's an ongoing thing, obviously, with the move to Plano.
I'd be happy to. It's a two-part question, I think, because I think we touched on two things. Is one of the examples you used is you move plant managers where the plants exist, and they're not necessarily in the most exciting cities. In logistics, same with our large distribution centers or warehouses, we have the same experience. We just want to move people to where they exist. So I think that's the track that I was on. So 7 moves later, here I am now in Dallas from California, again, in my 50s, which, at one point, it is something that we signed up for. And I think that's one. I think the question you just asked about the relocation from headquarters into Dallas is actually the collaboration for One Toyota. And One Toyota isn't about relocating people. It's about merging all our companies and being one strong collaborative company, which is what we're doing. Just an example of that is Steve, the Vice President for Logistics for Manufacturing Parts, and then I'm sitting with my boss, also Vice President for Service Parts here. And this collaboration has been going on for several years, and that's the whole idea with Toyota. And I guess the final comment I would say is I gave you the example of myself moving to where the plants, where the shops are, because I had to go run those shops. I think the big difference we had is we relocated headquarter offices. And many, I think, in our business, headquarter office folks generally aren't in that track to relocate. So we really appreciate those that actually made the move, and appreciate those that couldn't because of their family priorities, and we're happy that they're staying with us as long as they could as well.
Running late on time, but I did see we've sort of like 1 or 2 more hands. We'll start in the back there, and then maybe we'll start wrapping up soon.
Hey, my name's Josh Sauls. I'm with Forkites. Questions probably aimed more at Kerry and John. Kerry, you spoke about the automotive industry trying to, be the most innovative, and that sometimes, food and beverage, retail, et cetera, those industries are doing some things in the supply chain that maybe automotive isn't. How much, or if any at all, have you seen the Amazon effect take place in automotive in terms of real time, meaning, minutes, not hours, in terms of deliveries being late, detention fees, et cetera?
Yeah, well, really in the tire industry, we have 2 separate supply chains. You have the original equipment supply chain, which is supplying car companies, car factories with tires, and then we have the replacement channel, which is supplying tire dealers, wholesalers, places where consumers are going to buy tires. And this is where we're seeing some changes, and we've actually opened a store in Los Angeles, a Pirelli retail store, to really engage directly with our consumers and to gain experience dealing directly with consumers. yeah, there is an expectation out there that, you know, you go online, you can buy anything. Tires are a little bit different. Some of our competitors have been selling online, bypassing the dealer channel. It's been a bit problematic, you know, we have wholesalers that are able to provide basically same-day service multiple times a day to our tire dealers, and this allows somebody to, you know, go online, buy something from a tire dealer. It'll be delivered by the time they arrive at that tire dealer to be fitted on their car. But certainly, you know, people are going online, getting all the information they want on the product, looking for the best value, looking for the performance characteristics that they want in this tire. And yeah, it's not just going to a tire dealer and taking whatever the guy has on the shelf.
I can probably supplement too. The CSCMP meeting this past week in Detroit was to the FedEx new sortation center they have in Oak Park, Michigan. And they said they're going to outgrow that in 3 to 5 years because people are just using much more expedited freight. So I think the Amazons, the people are looking for much more product in a quicker, with Prime and so forth. They're looking for our stuff just as fast as what Prime would get. So the expectation there is, you know, why don't I get an alert on my email from you where the package is and so forth. So they're starting to, you know, millennials are getting trained and used to that instant data, the tracking and so forth. So I see the expectation for all of us in this room increasing to give that data to folks where things are at, knowing, you know, what's late or so forth. And that'll make the network more efficient as well. Aftermarket parts are still the next day by 7 in the morning, they need the parts and so forth. They haven't really changed the standard for aftermarket parts for the OEMs. But I could see they're challenged with quicker pickups locally in the area if something comes up. Because the soccer mom waiting for her car, they want it, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning the next day, you know, they don't want to wait. And the oil change should take 30 minutes, and everything's faster now, so.
I mean, something that we're going to have with this connected tire is, I mean, certainly a tire is something, unless you have a puncture, yes, it needs to be replaced immediately. But if it's just a wear issue, you know, the tire is going to tell the car, it's time to get new tires. Do you want me to go ahead and see which dealer in the area has tires and can get them in the next week? And when would you like to go in? I mean, that's something that this connected world is going to offer.
And our next session is actually specifically on service parts and aftermarket, including with Toyota. So we'll go into more about the need for speed and frequency there. We have run a bit over. I mean, it's been a really great discussion. I think I want to give you guys some chance for coffee. So maybe we can continue the discussion kind of offline. But I really want to thank our panel. I think it's very insightful, very interesting. Plus, we got to give the millennials a chance to get back on Facebook and Instagram, so we'll see you in a little while.